What is up, everybody? Welcome to the main event deep dive for UFC Vegas 41. And we have a banger. I mean, the last 3 weeks have been brutal. Mackenzie Dern, Marina Rodriguez. We had just last week, we had Aspen Ladd, Norma Dumont. 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago now, we had Johnny Walker, Thiago Santos, which could have been the worst fight of the year. But this fight cannot possibly be bad like those 3 fights. I think this is going to be an absolute banger. I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to talking it over with my Uncle Weezy, your Uncle Weezy. What is up, Weezy? Looking forward to this fight.
Very much so, man. This is going to be such a banger. We got a couple of great personalities in Vettori and Costa. Really, hard hitters. Costa is just so fun to watch. I can't wait for this fight. And, you got Costa, a great finisher, and Vettori never been finished. 5 rounds. We've never seen Costa outside of the 3rd round before. A lot of unknowns with how Costa will, approach a 5-round fight. Are we going to see him pace himself a little bit more than usual? A lot of unanswered questions, but I can't wait to chop it up with you guys because this is a really interesting matchup. I can't wait for it.
For sure. I do want to shout out everybody in the chat. Austin, first one in the chat. Uncertainty being the second. We have Monk in the chat as well. We have Brady, Chris, Dan in the chat. As always, grateful dude. And hanging out, Vince, I see you there. Borgie, 2K8, shout out to him. Shout out to all you guys in the chat. Thank you for hanging out. If you all can hit the like, that'd be much, much appreciated. Cannot wait to break this fight down. So if you guys have not seen it yet after this, go check out Stat Diggers. Me and Uncle Weezy went balls deep into every single matchup on the card, gave out some nuggets on that in terms of some violence props. So go check that out when you guys do get a chance. But I say we get into here. We have Prodigy. Prodigy, what is up? Prodigy in the chat as well. Philip hanging out. Appreciate you all hanging out on a Monday evening. So let's get into it. So we have Paulo Costa going against Marvin Vettori. We have Costa, who is 30 years old, 6'1" with a 72-inch reach. Marvin Vettori, 28 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. So Vettori is going to be 2 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. So Paulo Costa is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Had a knockout win over Olawale Bamboze, a knockout win over Johnny Hendricks, a knockout win over Uriah Hall, a decision win over Yoel Romero, and then a knockout loss just recently to Israel Adesanya. As far as Marvin Vettori, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights, a decision win over Andrew Sanchez, a submission win over Carl Roberson, a decision win over Jack Hermanson and Kevin Holland, and just recently lost by decision to Israel Adesanya. So Uncle Weezy, let's get into those experience stats.
For sure. Yeah, Vettori definitely having the experience edge here. We got 23 fights for Vettori, 14 for Costa, about 250 minutes of cage time for Vettori, and 74 for Costa. So hang on just a second. My phone is ringing. Let me mute the screen for a second. Talk amongst yourselves for just a second here.
All right, hit the chat. Let's see what we got in the chat. Dan saying, LOL Monk, Costa by KO. Yeah, the problem is the durability of Marvin Vettori definitely does concern me, but it very well could happen. If Orc Vettori comes out versus Hair Plug Costa, I got the guy who's bald by choice. Interesting take there. Yeah, Thomas, this stuck out to me as well. We'll talk about the props later in the video, but yeah, no distance minus 120. That's something that really did stick out to me. But Uncle Weezy, Hammering Hawk saying you're popular, you are. They're really good now, man.
Dude, while I was on mute, the phone was just ringing. They didn't hang up for at least 3 minutes. They just left it ringing. I'm like, come on, man. But anyway, so yeah, experience, definitely Vettori, the more experienced guy. About half of his experience at the UFC level, but it's the same ratio for Paulo Costa. So they fought both the same amount of their career at the highest level, but it's been Vettori who's gotten 9 more professional fights. He's got almost 200 more minutes of cage time. And then we look at the finish numbers for these guys. That's where we also see something. We see a 65% finish rate for Vettori, but we see an 80 or a 93% finish rate for Paulo Costa. Paulo has finished 4 of his 5 UFC opponents when he's beaten them, and he's been knocked out in his only loss. While Marvin Vettori in 5 losses has never been finished. So, you got it's the immovable force against the, or the industry, whatever it is. Somebody's going to get served. Either the force gets moved or the thing that can't get moved does get moved. Somebody's going to get served. but 93% finish rate for Costa, 0% finish rate against for Vettori. That's what makes this such an interesting stylistic matchup, because Costa always seems to win by, knockout. And, you can't really knock out Vettori because he's incredibly tough. So that's where the stylistic matchup is, this being 5 rounds, these two particular opponents facing off against each other is so intriguing.
Yep, for sure. You talked about the finish rates. Paulo Costa is a finisher, only won that one decision. He did knock down Romero, I think, a couple times. I remember in the first round, went back and watched it today. He knocked down Romero, and then Romero came right back and knocked him down. One of the better fights of the year. Vettori, not a crazy finisher, 65% finish rate. The majority of his finishes are coming by submission, which we'll talk about. It's pretty hard to get Costa down. I think if Vettori does get a finish, it's going to be because Costa really, really does slow down later in the fight. But I think Costa's, live for an early finish for sure. So yeah, it's tough though, because Vettori, his chin looks really good. This guy has next level toughness. Could Paulo Costa be the first one to knock him out? It's possible. Costa hits like a truck. He throws a ton of volume. So we'll have to see. But yeah, curious to get into some of the stats here, see how they match up.
So we've got, for the striking stats is where we'll start. You look at the volume for Costa. These volume numbers for a middleweight are eye-popping, but then you also realize that it's a 7.5 minute average fight time. So he puts crazy volume on for short periods of time, and it's pretty much enough to drown just about anybody. But he's landing 7.03 significant strikes per minute, only absorbing 6.7. 57% striking accuracy is just excellent. 1.25% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, 1.32 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And then, we've got 51% striking defense. He's been knocked down 2 times in 304 significant strikes absorbed, has Paulo Costa. So he's getting knocked down 0.66 times per 15 minutes. So we see quite a bit of power on Costa's side, and the ability to be knocked down as well. While Vettori, not really powerful, only 1 knockdown in 674 significant strikes landed. 3.88 significant strikes landed per minute, 3.04 absorbed. Not much in the way of power on the offensive side, but better than that is the defense by Vettori. Almost a 64% striking defense. Very, very important against somebody that hits as hard as Paulo Costa. And he's never been knocked down. So it's that great power of Costa against the great defense and resiliency of Vettori. So that's what makes the striking so exciting, because the other thing that we need to talk about is obviously the grappling. Now, we've seen Marvin Vettori go a lot to that wrestling lately. And be able to accrue a decent amount of control time. But is it going to be as much control time as he needs to get against somebody that hits as hard as Costa? That's the question that we're going to have to ask ourselves.
Yep, that'll be a key factor in this fight. We have Adrian with the dono. Shout out to Adrian, always bringing in the donos. I have never been so tortured taping a fight. Gosh, this is going to be a tough call. Looking forward to seeing how you two lean. I can't bet this. Yeah, it's a very, very tough fight to call, but hopefully we can find some spots on it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, I'll tell you this, Weezy, I think it's going to be, just a hot take, it's going to be a lot harder to take down Paulo Costa than it was to take down Kevin Holland 11 times. Like, Kevin Holland is somebody that obviously cannot stuff a takedown, 50% takedown defense, and it's going to be harder to take down Paulo Costa than it was to take down Carl Roberson, who has a 45% takedown defense. And going and watching tape, you just see like Paulo Costa is very, very hard to take down, and he's even harder to hold down. Like, this guy's big, he's strong, and we talk about it a lot. Like, when you are wrestling offensively, that's really going to drain your gas tank. And we have seen Vettori slow down after a wrestling heavy game plan, like in the Holland fight. Like the later that fight went, like Vettori was like really, really gassed. His gas tank looked fine in the Hermanson fight. It looked like it was weird. It looked like he was slowing down mid-fight, and then it looked like he kind of caught a second win, and he ended up finishing the fight pretty strong. But yeah, it's a tough fight to call, because I guess my concern is, what is Paulo Costa going to look like in rounds 3, 4, and 5? And, what's Vettori going to look like in rounds 3, 4, 5? Because we have actually seen Vettori go to the 5th round, I think like 3 times now, at least in the UFC. And we've never seen Paulo Costa go into round 4 or 5. So I think that's a big, big question mark, and a big concern if you are on the Costa side. Like, if he does not finish the fight early, what is he going to look like later in the fight?
That's the question that we don't know the answer to. The question is, another question is, Vettori never been knocked down before, but is Costa gonna be the first one to do that? We've seen Vettori, carry these wrestling heavy game plans into the fourth and fifth round against Adesanya, against Kevin Holland. Is he going to be able to do that against somebody like Costa? And one of the things that I didn't talk about when we talked about the striking is, yeah, Costa throws everything with maximum power, and when he hits you, it hurts. But one of the things that Costa, I've seen him do in almost all of his fights, even going back to the regional scene competition, this dude rips the body. I mean, rips the body. So that, combined with the fact that, if you're going to try to wrestle a monster like Paulo Costa and try to get him down and keep him down, and then this guy is ripping your body on the feet, I don't see this fight going to decision. This is going to be a battle of attrition. We've never seen Paulo Costa in a fourth round, and I don't think we're going to see Vettori fourth round here either, because the pace, the wrestling, the diversity of the attack of Vettori is going to be a lot for Costa to handle. But those body shots, the power, the great takedown defense that Costa possesses is going to be a very unique challenge. And look, the last time Vettori fought a guy with power with great takedown defense, his name was Israel Adesanya, and that's happened twice. And neither of those fights went Vettori's way. And it's the same thing for Costa. Costa didn't even make it 3 rounds with Adesanya. At least Vettori did. But, I think that's a function of the fact that Vettori's never been finished, while we have seen Costa be finished by Adesanya. So the great thing about Costa, though, is that he's got this 80% takedown defense that he can boast. He's been taken down 3 times, but he's only been controlled 4% of his UFC career. So that is about 2 minutes on 3 takedowns, 15 takedown attempts against Brady for Paulo Costa. And that has accrued 2 minutes of control time for Paulo Costa's opponent. So what the statistics are telling me here, Vettori's probably not going to be able to take this dude down and hold him down. Not for probably more than 15% of the fight, which means 85% of the fight takes place on the feet, with Costa and that 1.25% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, 7.03 significant strikes landed per minute, 57% accuracy, diversity of kicks to the body, punches to the body, punches to the head. I think Costa is going to be way, way more dangerous in the striking exchanges. And what the statistics are telling me, Brady, is that this fight will take place in the striking exchanges, probably at least 80 to 85% of the cage time. That leads me to believe that eventually Costa is going to find something that puts Vettori down, maybe gets the referee to step in here and gets the first stop of Marvin Vettori that we've ever seen.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's tough to call because I think early, like Paulo Costa is going to have a lot of success. Potentially can hurt Vettori. But yeah, Vettori is going to need to get on the inside, take down Paulo Costa down, and after getting through the tape, like I don't think it's going to be that easy because somebody mentioned in the chat like not many people are trying to take down Paulo Costa. Romero tried to take him down a couple times. Olawale Bamboze tried to take him down a couple times. And if they did, if they were able to get him down, I mean, Paulo Costa was able to get back up, fairly easily. Like this guy's very tough to hold down. So if it is, staying at range for several minutes, like you got to favor Paulo Costa in terms of the striking, especially with the power, right? He throws a ton of power and he throws a ton of volume. Like it's crazy to see the amount of volume this guy throws for how huge he is. Just over 12 significant strikes thrown per minute. He brings the volume, he brings the power. And if Vettori's not able to implement the game plan of getting it down to the mat, I think it's going to be a very rough first couple rounds, or maybe he even does get knocked out for the first time. So if you do like Costa, I think you're banking on a first, second, or third round knockout. But if you're on the Vettori side, I think you're banking on this getting later into the fight, extending Paulo Costa, slowing down like he has slowed down before. Like in the Romero fight, he was gassed out, but he was still coming forward. He was still throwing a lot of volume still. But I think you're banking on the Vettori side to kind of survive those first couple rounds, take over as the fight goes on. and potentially get a late finish himself. So yeah, it seems like a really close fight to me on paper, Uncle Weezy. So I'm not really sure why Vettori is this big of a favorite. He opened up as a minus one, or he actually opened as underdog, believe it or not. He opened up plus 130. He's now minus 158. Paulo Costa opened up minus 150, and he's now plus 138. So the line actually completely flipped. So yeah, I feel like this line should be closer. It's a close fight. I think it's either Costa early or Vettori late. I really struggle to see Vettori having success in the wrestling. And like I said earlier, if he does try to wrestle and he's not successful, or if he does go for a takedown and Paulo Costa is able to stand right back up, that is going to drain Vettori's energy. I mean, he got tired from wrestling Kevin Holland for 5 rounds. I can't imagine his gas tank if he tries to wrestle Paulo Costa for 5 rounds. It's going to be a lot harder. Paulo Costa offers a ton more resistance than a Kevin Holland, than a Carl Roberson. So yeah, it's a tough fight, man. Any thoughts on the line?
I tend to agree with everything that you just said there. I feel like it's very, very, very close, and that means whoever's got the plus money next to their name is probably the guy that I would bet if I were to bet a side. Here's a couple of the things that I find are interesting wrinkles here, right? Everybody seems to think that Vettori will have a better chance the further that this fight goes on. But if Vettori is using a wrestling heavy game plan and isn't successful with that, if Paulo Costa continues to commit to the body like he has in the past, I could even see a situation where Paulo Costa is the better conditioned athlete down the stretch in this fight. If he's landing big body shots, if he's successfully defending takedowns over and over again, he could be the one with more left in the tank in the 4th round. Paulo Costa has a reputation for being a very hard worker in the gym. You don't get a body like that without sticking a needle into your ass or being in that gym, dude, for many, many hours every single day. And this guy's been in the UFC for about half of his career, never once been popped for PEDs that I know of. So we just kind of err on the fact that this guy's an extremely hard worker in incredibly good shape. This is going to be a hell of a fight. There's a lot of different ways that this could go down. So I'm not really confident on either side, but seeing plus 130 next to Costa and seeing some of the things that I saw on tape has me leaning that direction for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious, what do you guys in the chat think? You're leaning towards the Paulo Costa side, or are you leaning towards the Marvin Vettori side? For me, it's so tough because, like you said, like would I be shocked if Vettori was the one gassed out after trying to take this big giant muscled Paulo Costa down for 3 rounds? No, I would not. I would not be shocked if Paulo Costa was the one looking fresher the fight went. But what I will say is we have seen Vettori go into the 4th and 5th round several times, so I do like that for him. I do like that he's never been knocked out. I do like that his chin has held up thus far. So yeah, it's a very, very tough fight. Thomas saying struggling to find spots on this card. You have a couple spots already. Some do stick out. He's taking the new Costa juice. Luke saying he bet Vettori at a pick'em, so you get some line movement there. Yeah. Thomas saying no distance or pass for me. That's an interesting point, Thomas. So let's take a look at the. Oh, this is interesting. So fight goes to decision is minus 125. Fight doesn't go to decision is only minus 105. Weezy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So that's what makes this fight so hard. The crazy power combined with the crazy durability of Vettori. It's hard to see who wins that battle. Will Vettori's resiliency win out again, or will it be like the brute force of Costa? Well, it's really hard to know. It's the immovable force meeting the unmovable object. It's another situation where I don't know how this works out. This is the first time that we've seen Vettori fight somebody with the pure brute strength of Costa, and he did not like the lengthy, crisp, technical striking of Kevin Holland one bit on the feet. And that fight took place in control time positions, Brady, over 80% of the fight, the Holland-Vettori fight. So only 20% of the fight took place standing. And in that 20%, we remember Kevin Holland having a ton of success, do we not? Right?
100%, yeah.
Look at the stats on fucking Costa here. This guy's fights stay in control time positions less than 6% of the time on the aggregate over a 6-fight sample size. So even if Vettori has more a success with the wrestling and control time positions than any of his previous opponents, including Yoel Romero, a silver medalist in the 2000 Olympics in freestyle wrestling. If this fight takes place standing 80% of the time, does anybody really think that Vettori's going to win this fight?
It's hard to see him having success.
If somebody there in the chat, or if you do, Brady, please tell me. Because if this fight takes place on the feet 4 out of 5 seconds, man, I think Costa's going to knock this dude's head in the third row.
I like it. Let's see what everybody else is saying. Dan's saying, yeah, Costin's a volume power striker, not a one-shot power striker. But the thing is, Vettori has a Lego block head. I think Costa punches himself out. That could happen. He could punch him so much that he gasses out. I can see that scenario. Jack's saying Vettori has a period in his fights, usually the third round, when his volume drops off significantly and he looks exhausted before seemingly getting a second win. It's all the same thing there, Jack. Happened with Sanchez and Hermanson. There you go. The problem with Vettori is just like Romero, there's zero submission threat from the takedown, so Costa will get up without worrying about giving up his back or arm. There is some submission threat with Vettori. Holland tagged him up. Yeah, Holland, I think he hurt him at one point as well. See what else we got. Costa's hands are not quick. They're kind of quick. He throws a ton of volume. Hammering Hog saying if Costa survives to the third round, I am hammering him. That's a great point you bring up, Hammering Hog. I talked about it last night on Stat Takers. I think this is a phenomenal spot for a live betting opportunity. If you like Costa, I'd probably bet him pre-fight. But if you like the Vettori side, I would not bet him here at chalk. I would wait until maybe the first round's over, maybe the second round's over, and then I think you'll probably get a better price tag on Vettori, right? If it does last that long, right, Weezy?
Yeah, because if Costa has some success early and people are thinking, because like in the heat of the moment, sometimes you're not looking at your stat sheet going, wait, Vettori's never been knocked out. Because when somebody a terrifying human being like Paulo Costa is unloading a bunch of combinations on you and you're backed up against the fence, that's going to be a problem. Another thing that I didn't mention is when you watch the tape on Costa, this guy's constantly moving forward. Fighting off your back foot is exhausting. There are very few fighters that can do that for long periods of time and be successful. And you really need a length advantage and a speed advantage. And Vettori isn't that much faster than Costa, and he's definitely not longer. So, I just, I don't like this for Vettori. I don't like this for him.
Especially at chalk as well. Jack's saying, I feel like Vettori might even be the slightly better technical boxer, but the size, explosion, and volume of Costa early will be a big hurdle. I do agree with that statement. Aldo saying, Costa does not train with anyone good. Vettori has Strickland and a bunch of other killers. That is true. Costa getting out-jabbed by Romero in the third round is a concern. Yeah, but early he's going to be very, very dangerous. So there is a couple props that I do want to get your thoughts on, Wheezy. So FanDuel does have out some props. So let's see what we got. So Vettori wins by KO plus 500. Costa wins by KO plus 230. Dan Goldstein in the chat said he was on this one. Vettori wins by submission plus 800. Vettori wins by decision plus 170. Take a look at these round props. Costa wins in round 1 plus 800. Costa wins in round 2 plus 1100. Vettori wins in round 4 plus 2200. Vettori wins in round 5 plus 2900. Anything sticking out to you from a prop perspective?
Not really, dude. This is such a hard fight to call. I've just talked about it so many times about what wins out, the resiliency of Vettori or the power and volume of Costa. I just don't know. So when I don't know that, to try to take that extra step in and say, all right, now let's pick a round, or now let's pick a method of victory, it makes it even harder. How about Costa by submission for plus 3,400?
I was going to say,
can we throw that into a party at Wheezy's parlay, where if we like bank that with a couple of round props, we could put $5 down and then we could throw one of the best parties of the decade if it hits. But yeah, I don't like Costa by submission. I got a funny feeling this one is going to the judges, but I couldn't bet it. because then if Costa just knocks out Vettori, or if Costa gasses in the fourth because he's never been there before, and then Vettori takes over and finishes him, I'd be saying there, why the hell did I bet that?
Yeah.
I just don't. I like to have a real strong lean, whether I bet it or not, and I don't have a lean on the time props here, man. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to it's kind of I mean, I could see it going to decision. Both guys are tough, both guys are durable, but Cost has never seen a fourth round. And just with the style of both guys, I'd be kind of surprised if it did or did not. Yeah, Adrian has actually gave a hot take out in the chat. I saw it earlier that he actually does like Costa by sub, which is literally plus 3,400, which you do not see sub props like that ever. And he is supposedly a black belt as well, for what it's worth. But Jordan is saying, does Costa have good takedown defense? He has great takedown defense. So that's kind of the problem here. If Vettori is not able to take him down, it could be a rough night. For 2.5 round, good takedown defense. After that, don't know, doubtful. That's a good point. Like later in the fight goes, what's his takedown defense going to look like in the third, fourth, fifth round? What's Costa's get up game going to look like later in the fight as well? So to talking about the judges, they need to be ready. Yeah, the judges have been bad, especially Saturday. That was bad for sure. Can we fade the main event in DK if it goes to decision? I don't know if they have price tags out yet or not, Weezy, but I don't know if I'd fade this fight. I think there's gonna be a ton of volume.
There are 12 fights on the card. There are some good violence spots and stuff, but yeah, fading the main event, not usually a good idea. Even if, like, for every Santos Walker that goes 5 rounds and somebody scores less than their salary, there's 9 main events where the winner is optimal. So, and now somebody's at my door. Who the hell is at my door, dude? What the fuck is going on, man?
I don't know, man.
Oh God, but yeah. So yeah, they're and now my dog is howling. You know what? Let me just check this out. Talk amongst yourselves for just a second here.
I'll talk to the chat. All good, man.
Yeah.
Weezy's getting more popular by the day. See what you guys are thinking in the chat. Any props that stick out to you guys? Got to think about Costa's mental side. Is he got in his head so bad? Yeah, that was a weird performance by Costa. He did not show up at all. Very disappointing there. He dominated that fight start to finish. Sometimes those types of performances change people. Usman dominated Woodley. Yep, can't disagree there. Vettori is a DK study. I don't know if I'd fade the fight on DK. I think it does score really well. Yeah, I thought of this as well, Speed. The main event keeps going the distance. Yeah, we saw Walker Santos go the distance, which screwed me. We saw Dern Rodriguez go the distance, which I thought I'd finished and have a bet on it. And then we just recently saw Lad Dumont go the distance. So, yeah, maybe that changes here. The feds, hopefully they're not at Wheezy's door. Release the hound, Wheezy. Wheezy ordered that DoorDash. There you go. It's so sad, the chat. Adrian saying on DK, you will need this. I agree. Free advice. I advised a Klein fade. Okay. You will need this. Likely 8,000 versus 8,200. I agree. Yeah. Shout out to Adrian for the dono again. Costa had a hair transplant, fading him solely for that reason. Can't blame you there.
He did not have a hair transplant. The kid, he's got a beautiful head of hair. That's jealousy, isn't it, Brady?
No, I actually did saw that he got a hair transplant.
You're kidding me. Did he really?
I swear. Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, damn. I really didn't know that, dude.
That's all good.
Oh, well, he's a beautiful man, so, I mean, you might as well, have all the other things going for you. You might as well.
I guess so. Oh, this is what it was. Wheezy bet the Marcos Souza fight. So he sent the 1-800 gambler orderlies to come and take you away in a jacket, right?
They didn't get me in the straight jacket, man, because I didn't bet that fight, and I won't be betting that one, man. For me to even tape study that fight, I would have to have so little going on this week, Dude,
yeah. I was going to ask you to do a balls deep on it just as like a joke. Like that fight's horrible, man. I can't believe it. But do you want to quickly go through like the strength of schedule stats? I'm kind of curious to see who has fought the better competition.
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting. Sometimes we'll see a little bit better ratio on one guy, and we'll see a little bit better total fights on the other guy. And this is one of those situations. So the ratio on the overall competition is better for Vettori at 2.25, Costa 1.79. So both really good. They've been fighting really good opponents, but it's Costa who's been fighting the more experienced competition with 11.17 total fights as compared to 9.45. If we look at the wins, once again, Vettori fighting the better ratioed competition. But Paulo Costa beating the more experienced competition, but it's close. And then if we look at the losses, it's a little bit better for Costa because he's only got one, and it was Israel Adesanya, while Vettori does have 2 losses on his record. So the strength of schedule numbers are very close here. I'm not finding an edge really either way. I mean, Vittori's fought Adesanya twice, went to decision with him both times. Costa fought him once and was knocked out. So we do have a common opponent, and it went a little bit better for Vettori than it did for Costa. Could lead us to believe that Costa isn't fit to go 5 rounds against a really, really tough opponent. But he went 3 rounds against Romero and had a good deal of success there. So this is such a hard fight to call, man. There are so many reasons to like both of these fighters. But when you look at the strength of schedule, since Vittori's had 11 fights to Costa's 6, I'd say that it's just a little bit more impressive for Vettori, but it's a very, very small degree of difficulty there.
Steven saying Apollo is going to smash Vettori. Yeah, man, it's a tough fight to call. I'm really struggling with picking a winner here. Ultimately, my final thoughts on the fight, I'm probably going to lean towards the Vettori side, and here's why. We have seen him in a 4th round. We've seen him go 5 rounds a few times in the UFC. He went 5 rounds against Adesanya, got beat. He went 5 rounds and wrestled Holland for those 5 rounds, got 11 takedowns against him. He went 5 rounds with Jack Hermanson in a fight where he struck with him for pretty much the whole fight. I mean, it was Jack Hermanson was the one that was taking him down in that fight. So we have seen Vettori go 5 rounds. And the other thing I do like about Vettori in this matchup is going to be the durability. This guy has a block for a head. Very hard to knock this guy out. Could Costa be the first one to do it? Potentially, and it could happen for sure. But I think if Vettori can survive those first, 2.5 rounds, I think he'll slowly start to take over. But again, I'm really curious to see the game plan of Marvin Vettori. Is he going to, stay at range and strike with Costa, try to survive those first couple rounds? Or is he going to try to implement a wrestling heavy game plan, try to take down Costa? If he comes in there and tries to go for takedowns, I do have some concerns because, for one, it's really hard to take down Costa. 2, really hard to hold him down. And 3, offensive wrestling is very, very draining on your cardio, especially if you don't get it. Like when you get it, like he got 11 takedowns against Kevin Hall and he was still looking tired in that fight. But I think it's going to be a lot harder for him to take down Costa here. So yeah, this feels like a 50-50 matchup to me, Uncle Weezy. So, in terms of the money line, -158, I really don't like it. I don't like the Vettori money line. If anything, it's probably a dog or pass. But as far as a pick, I'm going to slightly lean Vettori for the 5-round experience and for that durability.
And I'm going to slightly lean Costa for what I think is a really good stylistic matchup for him. A high probability of over 80% of this fight taking place at striking distance, where I think Costa will have the power and volume advantage. And like I said, if Vettori does choose to go to the wrestling early, does try to tire out Costa and then maybe put it on him in the later rounds, I don't see him having success with that game plan. So I do like this for Costa quite a bit. I might be taking a shot at the +130, but it'll probably be one of my smaller bets of the week, maybe a maximum of 1 unit, because God, there's a number of different ways I could see this fight taking place. The one thing I don't see is this being a boring fight. I really hope not, because it could, it's one of those ones where if it was boring, it would be really disappointing. But I don't see it being that. I think this is going to be an action fight. I think both these guys are really exciting. The power of Costa against the resiliency and well-roundedness of Vettori. It's a great main event. 2 top 5 middleweights. Can't wait for this fight. But for me, the pick is going to be Costa.
I like it. So yeah, we're both going a different way, but maybe we can both agree that for one, this fight's going to be really good, and for 2, this is a really close fight. So yeah, we have a dono in the chat, Adrian. Shout out to Adrian. Just want to say, great show. I do excellent betting, and I have gotten better by just being open-minded and listening to other perspectives. Saved me some money. Great job, guys. Appreciate that, Adrian. Good to hear. Shout out to you for always coming in and supporting. And we have Daz as well. Monk Maddox, Vettori, better strength of schedule in the last 5, better strength of victory as well. Shout out to Daz for hanging out. Another huge supporter of me and Wheezy. So yeah, guys, I think that's about it. I'm leaning Vettori slightly, Wheezy slightly leaning Costa, potentially a bet for him at that plus money. The line, I don't know where the line's gonna go. We'll have to see where it goes throughout the week. Wheezy, you can get Costa right now plus 1 bet online though. But yeah, Weezy, any final thoughts? And also let them know where they can find you and what you have going on throughout the week. I know you just went live. I watched your balls deep breakdown for the Molina fight. That was great. Go check that out, guys. And then you're going live tomorrow once again, right?
Yep. Just did a balls deep breakdown of the Molina Lacerda fight. I've got some bets on that fight as well, so you can check that on my YouTube channel, Uncle Wheezy. You can hit me up on Twitter at MMA Wheezy, and you can find me on Pub Sports Radio tomorrow night, 6:00 p.m. with Brady and Luke and AJ doing the DraftKings show. And I will be going live on my channel tomorrow night after the Contender Series, 10 o'clock Central Time, for my UFC Vegas 41 full card breakdown, just the tip with Uncle Wheezy. We're putting on the smoking jacket, breaking down all 12 fights on that card. So thanks for having me on, Brady. Appreciate it. And thanks for everyone in the chat for hanging out with us.
Let's go. No problem, Weezy. Thank you for coming on, Chris, and good stream as always, guys. Appreciate that, Chris. Yeah, if you guys do like this concept, we used to, record it on a Sunday night and then post it Monday morning, but I think a lot more people do like it, including me and Weezy, who just go live every Monday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, talk through it, with the chat. I feel like it's a lot better that way. So if you guys do like it, please leave a like, let us know. Also subscribe to the channel, DFS by the numbers here. Go check out Weezy, subscribe to him as well. Weezy trying to get that 1K hopefully before the new year. That'd be awesome there. My full card breakdown and prediction video will be out tomorrow morning. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. Content coming out throughout the week for UFC Vegas 41. Should be a good card. And then the next 2 weeks, I believe is next week UFC 267.
Yep, and then 268 the week after that. So we're in for a treat. We just got to get past this card, make a little money on this card, bring that money into the next 2 pay-per-views, and one of them isn't even a pay-per-view, but it's a pay-per-view lineup. So it's just going to be absolutely beautiful. Looking forward to this.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great couple of weeks there. But yep, thank you guys for hanging out as always. Leave a like on your way out, and we'll talk to you very soon. Good luck for UFC Vegas 41.